All right, guys. Thank you for taking the time to join me this Friday and discuss cybersecurity awareness training. So we're going to be talking about it in relation to essentially both SEC and FINRA registered firms and how you might think about properly incorporating one of these training programs into your firm. So my name is Brian Hahn. I've been running Tradecraft since 2009. Prior to that, have a background both in cyber intelligence and in hedge fund and RIA operations and compliance, and currently consult with over 200 SEC registered firms. So today I just want to discuss cybersecurity training and why I think it's important. And then I'll talk about how I present it to my clients so that they can, get these type of programs, compliant programs in their firm. So I thought it might be useful if I walk you through that today. So of course, I'd love to have your firm and to do some work for you, have your firm as a client. But if you're a do-it-yourselfer, you should be able to take what I'm doing today and replicate it within your own firm. So when putting these programs into place, it's really kind of a three-step process, at least in my mind. The first is I really want to get a solid understanding of the particular risk and threats that are facing my firm and put that into some kind of report. And this is generally the report that the SEC is going to refer to as like that risk assessment or threat assessment. It's really just a report that says, hey, if an attacker is going to come after you, this is the type of information that's out there, and this is how they're going to attack you. And then I like to share that risk and threat report with the employees because I think it's really important to, for one, educate them and understand why they're going through training, and also to get buy-in into the program so that they really are the biggest defenders of your network. The other thing we're going to talk about is the SEC wants to see kind of assigned risks and threats to grouped employees and relevant training put towards those employees. So we'll talk a little bit more about the compliance side of that and also the operational aspect of it, how you can implement that in your firm. And then three, how to automate that training and reporting so that as CCO or CISO or whatever your job title might be, if you're responsible for delivering the training, what's a very quick process for you to put it into place and just have it running in the background for you. So stepping back a little bit, if you haven't seen some of my other webinars or articles that are coming out, 2022 brought a big change in the cybersecurity environment within the SEC with the introduction of 20649 at the beginning of 2022, which will become written in here at the beginning of 2023. So coming up soon, we're really moving from a period of cybersecurity guidance from the SEC to a period of cybersecurity regulation. And I think 20649 is going to be a big part of that. So why is that important? Having training and having a documented training program within your firm is going to be very important. One of the things that 20649 is going to bring about is disclosures of cybersecurity risks. So in your Form ADV Part 2A, that written brochure, you're going to have to start disclosing what cybersecurity risk you know. And you're most definitely going to want to include in that disclosure some kind of language and work with your attorneys on this, but some kind of language that states that you have a training program in place. So 20649 is also going to bring about Form ADVC, which is going to be the reporting of cybersecurity incidences. So this is going to be a new form, and we're not quite sure how the SEC is going to respond once they receive these type of reports. But again, guaranteed, you're going to want to be able to show that you were doing some kind of ongoing cybersecurity training with your employees. And this is also going to affect your risk management protocols and your policies and procedures manual. So there's a screenshot here, just of page one, but the SEC put out a great 2-pager on everything that's going to be covered by 20649. So I definitely encourage you to read through that. But one of the things that we know is we're going to have very strict written policies and procedures manuals that outline the cybersecurity protocols. And so having a training program as part of that's going to be pretty important. The other thing, so there's the 2-pager that I talked about. I think the actual rule 20649 is 240 something pages. And somewhere around page 25, maybe, we start to see language of what they're going to expect in terms of a training program. And some of the language they use is to consider role-specific cybersecurity threat and vulnerability response training. And so some of that is going to be matching particular training to particular employees. You know, I'm not quite sure the average size of the firm here, but you know, if you have IT professionals in your firm, they should definitely be taking additional training than, say, an admin or an accountant would. And so we want to have specific training. You know, when you look through, and we'll talk more about you know, some of the breaches that have happened, but in the past, but a lot of it, like kind of the Equifax that we're put in the title, is that the employees just weren't properly trained on their procedures and what they should do. So assigning specific training programs is going to be a big deal for the SEC, I expect, going forward. So when I talk about doing a threat and risk assessment, I want to talk about how I do that a little bit. And for me, it's really about basing my clients' expectations in the real world. So on the left, I have kind of a threat map. So if you look at, you know, these known breaches and these known attack vectors that we watch, this is the percentage of that element that's made up in that attack. So 71% of attacks are going to have some sort of phishing element to it. So again, this is why it's very important to do training so that we can teach our employees what phishing looks like, how to identify that, and how to protect themselves. 50% of the attacks contained an attack on an unpatched vulnerability. So the hackers exploited an unpatched vulnerability. Again, this kind of gets back to the training, and this was the instance with Equifax and Uber. Which if you've seen the Uber news lately, is a big deal because this, I think it's their chief technology officer is going to do prison time for not reporting the breach, which ultimately was from unpatched vulnerabilities, I believe, with both breaches. So, you know, for me, when I'm introducing my clients to the threat landscape, it's really discussing this with them. We really want to focus on phishing, and we really want to focus on the importance of, you know, making sure our systems are patched and assigning that responsibility to employees to make sure systems are patched. So all of this needs to be kind of written out in that policies and procedures manual that you're going to have. So again, let's dive in more to conducting a risk assessment, and I'll show you an example here of how I do that with my clients. You know, again, I think it's important to share, you know, the findings of this with your employees to get the buy-in. And so what we're trying to do, I'm going to jump to a little interactive map here. What we're trying to do with the threat or risk assessment is answer the question, if a hacker decides to come after your firm, what information is already available out there? And this technique in my world is called OSINT, or open source intelligence. So for me, the first step is I usually take a firm's domain. And so this is where I'd suggest you start, take your domain. And then in this instance, I'm using the fictitious Vela Ford. And then I'll run that domain name through thousands of pages of Google search, Bing search, all of these open source websites. What I'm really trying to do is build a picture of what this domain looks like. So for instance, I want to know what email addresses are on the domain. Where do they keep their email? Where are their email servers located? What kind of systems are running on the website? The whole idea here is I'm trying to paint a picture of what systems and what software and what people might be behind this domain. I'll reference it in the end if you want to take a look, but in some of our other webinars, I'll actually go through and show you how a phishing attack happens. So, you know, one of the things that we want to do in a phishing attack is make sure that our attack vector, which I like to use PDF, and so, you know, I want to make sure that that attack vector aligns with that actual firm's infrastructure, right? So if I can send a PDF that I know contains an exploit for a particular version of Acrobat that the firm is using, my attack is going to be more successful. I also like to take the email addresses and just see what past domains I can find them breached in. So, employees use services like LinkedIn and Adobe and all these other, big services that have been breached. So I like to run them through a public database and understand what information has been lost. So here you can see we took billgates@gmail.com and ran it through our database. And down below, you can see the different breaches that his information was found in. And then down below that, in these nodes, I'll actually map out what information I was able to collect. So you can see in this instance of this firm, we were able to collect the email addresses, dates of birth, the IP addresses. We found 6 instances of past passwords that have been breached and usernames. So as an attacker, this would be my first step in attacking a firm. I want to know what systems you're using. I want to know usernames and I want to know passwords because that's going to make me more successful. So I love building these kind of threat maps. And for one, it helps address that SEC requirement of doing a written threat assessment. But 2, when we go and we show employees these and we say, hey, look, here's your password from LinkedIn. And we also recover it from Adobe and it's the same password. It really drives home that importance of not reusing passwords and making sure that you have 2-factor authentication on there. So again, kind of 2 points to here. 1, getting that compliance document underway, and 2, getting the employee buying so that they understand that everything they do has, some kind of potential consequence to letting an attacker in the network, whether it's opening a malicious email or just giving away information, for LinkedIn or whatever they may have signed up for. So let me jump back to the presentation here. So after we do the threat assessment, I can start to think about classifying my different employees for training. Okay, so I've done my threat assessment. I understand what the targets might be within my firm. I'm looking at what systems are running on my website, what might be attacked there, what information do I store on my website. So this is a lot of, matrix information for different firms. If you're a small firm, less than 3 employees, and everybody is doing a little bit of everything. Everyone does some trading and everyone does some accounting and client service. Maybe you can group everyone together and everyone gets the same training. Maybe you can make that argument for that. Oftentimes I see funds that will break up their employee classifications into 3 classifications. For instance, you might have one of employees who have access to client funds and could manipulate trades or cashiering. And then another group is ones that have access to personally identifiable information. And then you could actually break those up or even have a group 4, no access to funds or personally identifiable information. So, perhaps if you have a janitor on staff and they aren't using any IT systems, they could go through some basic training that maybe would incorporate physical security and door locks and that sort of thing. So again, just kind of getting at what the SEC wants to see is that you've put some thought into your risk and assign them to different employees, so that your web developers are getting different training than your admin or your janitor, and assigning training that way. So for step 3, it's really just deploying an automated trading system. So I know I can see a few of you here are already using our Fieldcraft training program. It's generally what we give to clients when they come through. And then if you're a firm with 10 or less employees, we actually have a version of this for free training. So you can come and use our Fieldcraft program to go through the training with your firms. I'm going to go through a quick demo with it just to show you. It takes less than 10 minutes to set up. Fully customizable for your team, depending on how you want to classify your employees. And of course, it's easy to print training and compliance reports from it. That's the whole point. So less expensive than the competition. If you have 10 or less employees, it's free. So again, if you're using something like KnowBe4 or some other system, those will definitely work, and you can incorporate that into your workflows and your policies and procedures. So for Fieldcraft, the way we set it up is we essentially give our CCOs access to a platform that looks like this. So When they first log in, they'll be able to assign training programs and assessment. I often describe training programs as being like sitting through science class. This is where you're reading through a textbook, you're watching some videos, except in this case, it's just videos, no textbook, but really learning the lessons and doing some small quizzes on them. And then the assessments is like the lab version, where we're actually testing how employees would handle ransomware and how they might handle a phishing email, et cetera. So it's super easy. On the right, you'll have a calendar. Once you get it automated, you can see kind of quickly who has training coming up. Roughly every month or so, we'll release a new course or a new assessment, and then constantly updating it with new subjects or new training as they come out. So each video is pretty quick. Each little training session is under 2 minutes, followed by a small quiz that's aggregated into the reports for the CCO so that they can build those compliance docs. So I'm going to show a little bit more about how we kind of think about just assigning training to specific groups. So when you come in, you can create a training program. We'll just call it simple training. We have a couple already outlined, a couple training programs already outlined that you can just choose and go. But for a lot of firms, I suggest to come in and do the custom. And then we can actually assign specific training to the employees as we see fit. So when we get into, we'll come up and click add a subject. We can choose from different categories. So for instance, let's say we have employees that we know are working from home. Maybe we want them to go through some training on Zoom bombing, how to secure their home Wi-Fi, and making sure they don't have an unattended computer at home. Just to start, you can go through and select all the courses that would be relevant for your employees and create your own little program. Then we want to assign it to employees. So super easy, we'll create a new list. Let's say one of our categories is traders. So we would create a list for our traders. You can go through and add their email and an optional name if you want to add their name. You can also switch to import mode and import it with a CSV if you have a ton of employees that you need to upload quickly. CSV is very simple, just has their email and full name, 1 and 2 columns, so super easy to import en masse as needed. So we'll just do let's just do a quick little sample employee here. So we have Jim added to the traders. We'll confirm there, and he's going to get that training. So we can schedule delivery. You can do this in a couple different options. I know a lot of our clients are super busy, and so we don't want to hit them with a bunch of training or have it sitting in their inbox just going unnoticed. So you can schedule delivery. If you want to do weekly, have them do one subject on every Friday. You can set that schedule. You can also select to send everything now if you just want to have employees tackle it as they come across it. Can be sent through email, Slack, or Microsoft Teams, whatever you prefer. And then you could also just download sign-in links if you had your own program that you wanted to distribute. The great thing I like about the automation is the reminders. So once you get the training program out there, you can set automatic reminders so that if you have an employee that falls behind schedule, they're going to start getting these automated emails instead of having you come by their desk and remind them every few minutes. So it'll automate that for you as well. And then an intro message, if you want to write, as you're setting this up, if you want to write, a specific message, dear traders, you can certainly include that there as it goes out. Then you finalize the training and create, and that will go ahead and send everyone to their particular into their particular training. That will send the training into the email for those particular individuals, and then you can come back and track their progress at any point. So same thing with assessments, which are going to be like the labs. They're assigned in much the same way. You can always go to the employees tab and see how everyone's doing and run specific reports on those employees. And then we have a subject tab at the front, because I know a lot of people are running, they might have specific software or something or specific protocols. So you can come into any of the training, and if you click on it, it's going to show you the video that the employees see, what they're going to read. And then you can also add your own notes down here. If you have something custom or you need to include some documents that are specific for your firm that you want to, have marked off in those compliance documents, you can include that in there too. And then we have reports. Once your employees start going through the training and the assessments, it'll start generating reports here, where if you can click on it, it'll start, it's going to be a pretty blank report here, but it will start filling in the information for them, how many people have taken the test, what their scores were, et cetera. So you can use that as part of your compliance documentation. So, the threat assessment, it's just kind of a quick overview of how, I like to present the risk and threats to my clients. If you want to see more where we actually walk through how we phish people or how we hack into hedge funds, I have videos on YouTube where we walk through that. You can also go to my website and read articles about how we phish people and that sort of thing. The main point here is if you have the extra time, I certainly encourage you to share this information with your employees. For me, being able to present to employees and say, hey, this is how people are going to come after you. These are the breaches we found you in. This is the information they're going to use about you, the social media profiles they know about you, et cetera. And then we can also couple that with giving just a very simple demonstration how we do of how that information can be used against them or used against the firm. So if you have the time, I definitely encourage you to take a look at that on YouTube and then also post it up on our website at mtradecraft.net. And so that's it. That's really, that's how we approach this topic for our clients. It's building that risk and threat report so that we can meet the SEC's compliance documentations on that, showing it to employees, getting them bought into the need to have the cybersecurity training and why it's important. And then thinking through our risk and how we're going to assign those to different employees. Our IT guy is going to should take responsibility for making sure systems are updated. Whereas the admin should make sure that he or she's not sharing sensitive client information over the phone, right? So everyone has their role to play, and we want to make sure that we're assigning them appropriate training. And then, of course, just automating that process so that the training is, we can set it and forget it. The training is deployed each year, and we can easily pull those compliance reports for a regulator or, a board meeting or whatever the case may be as we go forward. So I hope that's helpful and just giving that insight. Again, if you have less than 10 employees in your firm, we have a free training option where you can come through. You don't even have to put a credit card in. And go through the training and print those reports for your employees and make sure they're compliant. And then, of course, we have programs if you need, more full-scale versions of doing an audit or doing some training, or you have 10 or more people in your firm. We certainly have options for that as well. So, again, thank you so much for joining me this Friday. I greatly appreciate you guys always coming out and hearing what I have to say, especially when we hold these on a Friday. I know that can be rough, so I really do appreciate it, and I hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Thank you.